Today we will examine some basic text formulas that allow us to manipulate the text, separating, combining, etc. Let's look at some of these basics. I've put in a lot of text formulas. Certainly there are more. If you look up here, you can see under text, there are just lots of different functions that we could use with text. Here in this example, you can look through the various ways that text formulas are used, providing you different inputs so that you can see the results. I won't go through all of these right now, but let's go down here and hit some of the more important ones for what we're going to look at. You'll notice if I were to have taken off this thing said ignore, these two cells look exactly the same. And yet if I come over here, this one says this is text, whereas this one says it is not. They both look like numbers, but this is left justified. That is typical of text. And if I click on here, you'll see this has a single quote in front, so it is no longer a number, it is text. Whereas this one is a number, but because of the way the cell has been formatted, it is left justified just like text cells are. Next, with character codes. Did you know that each character that you can see on your screen has an underlying number that works with it? Let's take a look at that. You'll notice here the code for a T, a small t, is 116. We can also find it up here if we go Insert, Symbol, and under the symbols we will pick out, I'm going to go to ASCII decimal ones. You can see the small t here, the 116, whereas a large T has the character code 84 in it. Also, you'll notice things like the copyright sign, that's 169, or trademark 153. So we can get the code of any character we can type here, but we can also put in these other codes, like character 7. Or here, let me put in 169. And now we have the copyright symbol. Next, we will join two cells together. The concatenate function is a function made to do that. We put in concatenate and then any number of strings we want. You notice these are in quotes, mega, comma, formula, comma, even, and so forth. That works very well. It puts all these strings together into one string. I prefer to use normally the ampersand sign. So I put the string and then the ampersand sign and formulas and so forth. Again, the same results. I like to do it this way. My brother, who is a CPA, even if he's just bringing two strings together, will use the concatenate function. Here's an example of where we might use it. We have Brian in one cell, Anderson in the other. We want to make that a single cell name. So we put B49 concatenated with, and then in quotes, one space, concatenated with C49. And we end up with Brian Anderson. Sometimes we want to turn a number into text so that we can use it with other text. Here we have a single sentence saying the prophet is space, that's one string in quotes, concatenated with text, turning whatever is in F54 here, comma, and then formatting that text. So in quotes, $, it'll always have a $, pound, comma, pound, pound, comma. If we have a comma between these pounds like this, every 3 decimals, it will put a comma in there. Now, pound means if we don't have a number that goes that big, then ignore it. Don't put anything there. Whereas a 0 says, I want something always in this location. So there'll always be a 0 in the ones location, period, and in the cents locations. So here we have formatted that into one. Let's change this. I'm going to make this a lot bigger. And you can see now it keeps putting those in every 3 characters until it's completed. Or let's do this. I'm going to put 0.01, 1 penny, And now you'll notice 0.01. Always have a number in those locations. There is also a function that does this called $. So we can concatenate total, space, with $, and then put in any dollar amount or refer to another cell. This allows us also to round those numbers. So comma 2, like the rounding function. Notice this $1 refers to the cell F56 and says round it 2 decimals, so it's 0.4598. Here we get 0.46 cents. Next, we want to combine date time. So reported as of space and concatenated with text of now. That brings the date and time in from our machine, comma, and then formatted in quotes 4 M's. What does that do? Yeah, that brings in the full month name, like January, February, March. 3 M's would bring in JAN, FEB, MAR. And then we'll want a space and a single D. That will give any date. How would that differ from 2 D's? Yeah, 2 D's would put in 01, 02 through 09, and then 10, 11, and so forth on the date. We then want a comma and the year, a 4-digit year. A 2-digit year would be 17, 18, and so forth. And then space at, that's all part of the formatting, the hours, minutes, and we'll use the AM, PM style. If we left that off, then it would give the 24-hour style. So reported as of, and you can see how that works out with the formatting. Another thing that's done, whenever you write a check on the computer, you typically put in asterisks at the end. This is so nobody will make this final period a comma and then put in more digits afterwards and commit fraud with your check. There's 2 ways we can do this. We can do text and use whatever number here we want. And then here we put in the typical formatting of that number, concatenated with repeat. We'll repeat, and in quotes you see an asterisk. We want to have exactly 24 characters in the cell, so we say 24 minus the length of however this previous amount was formatted to. We don't know how big that number is going to be, but when we do it this way, we'll have exactly 24 characters here. Custom is another way we can handle this, but that is custom, doing that with the cell itself. We can format the cell so that it does it. So the formatting would be with 2 asterisks at the end. That means fill in whatever the size of the cell is with asterisks afterwards. So you'll notice if I open this up bigger, it's just going to continue to put asterisks in there. Removing excess characters. Sometimes we have characters that, like a bullet point or something, that we don't want to use. They're often referred to as non-printable characters, although we can print them on the laser machines today. So here we have a bullet and then a space and then the text bullet point. Notice here I've said clean, and I actually stuck in another bullet point concatenated with whatever this text is that has a bullet point and then the words bullet point and another bullet point. When I clean it, it leaves me with just bullet point. But you'll notice there's also a space here at the first. So it got rid of all the extra characters, but not the spaces. If we want to do that, then we come down here and say trim, whatever's in E68, and it gets rid of any spaces in front or at the end, and just one space in between. Let me show you. If I come up here and put in a lot of spaces just so we can see this, you'll notice this has a lot of spaces, but here it's trimmed out all those extra spaces. The next item, changing case, we can go all upper, all lower, or all proper. Let's look at this on the next tab. I have upper, whatever's in A3, lower, and so forth. I'm going to just copy these all down so that you can see what they look like. Now, they all work pretty well, except for in this proper where it capitalizes the first letter of any word, Danny McDonald didn't capitalize the D. It did exactly what it was supposed to do, but if we were going to use this in names, we would probably have to have additional functions to go in and look anything with Mick and then capitalize the next letter, or like O'Connell, O apostrophe, and then capital C, and so forth. Sometimes we have extra spaces. We've already looked at that, so we use the trim, and it takes care of all those extra spaces. Joining, again, the two names, putting them together as one. So here we have the ampersand with a space. And text codes, we've also already covered that. Let's move on to the next tab.